Hey everybody, welcome to Arch's Garage, and we have a pretty cool engine here. So a quick backstory and I'll tell you what we're going to be doing with it. 190cc, this thing's pretty cool. Very common motor, Intek IC. It's made from two. I got a couple of these, I collected them over a couple of years, and I think it was over the winter, whatever, I kind of came to the point where I'm like, well, these things are so common. This one's got a pulley on it. Used in mini bikes, go-karts, snow blowers, oh my, wood chippers, right? It's a really nice common motor. It's made a few different years. I'm not sure what this one was from. It's not a Snow King version. Sometimes you'll see it'll say Snow King on the front, and it have a little different intake system on it. So one motor made from two. One of them was completely seized up. Looked like it got water in it. Could probably give you a little footage on that, depending on which video. I think one of the videos will have more footage on it than the other. And so two different ones, slightly different years. Got it together working, and so I've got this now on the side, up on the shelf, and something that I can use for whatever the application comes along. Now in the other videos, I go over a HIPAA carburetor, replacement carburetor, because the carburetor was totally borked, and because I took everything apart and grabbed what I thought was the best on a budget of the parts that I could put together and test this motor up and see if it was worth anything. Right, I went over the head, so that's a separate video. Valve Lash cleanup, honing, all of that, valves, Valve Lash. But in this video, we're just gonna kind of focus in on doing a Valve Lash over here. So if your motor is running pretty good and you just want to do a Valve Lash on it, we're going to do that in this video. So stay tuned and let's get to it. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of my assembly lube on, which is just a thick weight oil if you don't have anything else, right? And these are valve spreaders. Put a little bit there, and they'll stay on, right? Create a little bit of suction. Just push them down. They're the same on both. I don't see any differences, right? It would be silly to do that. Now I've heard James Condon, right, the guy that does all the generators, he calls these things valve rotators. I've built a lot of motors, Ford, Chrysler, GM, Pontiac. I've heard that term. What there really are, it's like we used to use valve lash caps, and so like a lash cap does two things. One thing it does is what this does. The tip of that valve is so small, right? And you would be wearing your rocker arm. And if there's any misalignment between here and here in the stud, okay, and that can happen because of core shift and lousy manufacturing tolerances, you put one of these on. And now you can see it don't matter, right, where the hell it winds up, right? Now, does it rotate? Does it rotate the valve? It doesn't rotate the valve. If the valve wants to rotate, it's not going to stop it because it has another friction point that it, like a bearing point, and it can allow some movement. But I don't know about that. It's a spreader or a lash cap. Now, a lash cap adds one extra thing, is that if you have some weird rocker arm geometry, and these are already lubed, so let's put these in while I'm yelling at you, yapping away. Just make sure they fit nice down there, because it has to hit the lifter. That feels good. And if you want, don't put any oil on the threads, because there's still a little bit of blue lock on the threads, and originally they put blue lock. They put a little oil on that if you want to put a little oil in that spot there. So let me keep yapping. Arch, you always got these long-winded explanations. Yeah, I do, I know. Well, because, you know, I'm getting old and I got diabetes and life is trying to kill me, right? And I want to share what I know before I kick the bucket, right? You can't blame me for that, right? Because life is trying to kill me. Like my doctor says the other day, he goes, well, you're perfectly healthy, except diabetes is trying to kill you. Yep, there's that. So if the geometry was weird, and I built a pretty weird Pontiac motor, and geometry could be a little weird because it's a custom thing. Oh, we got it the wrong way. Because you're yapping Arch, you yapping. Yeah, I know. That's what I do. So, if it is a little weird, and that can happen is that you're not getting the right amount of valve movement. So maybe you got a custom set of valves and the stem is too short. Right, but it's a custom set and really sweet valves like the ones that I put in my engine. You know, that I don't have anymore, that I had to sell because of divorce and health. This is the size of the intake valve, right, that I had in my Pontiac engine. Right, and I put these in. These are custom stainless steel valves. Yeah. Why did I sell that? I should have just been poor. Well, I am still poor. So if there's issues, you can add a valve lash cap, right, which is just lengthening the valve a bit, and you can grind it and tweak it because you don't take the valves out. So let's say you wanted to go a little bit more, right? You could take that cap off and shave it and mill it, or put a bigger one in, and then you could sneak it in and get exactly what you want. But in this case, it's probably because the valve tip is really small and crappy tolerances. So now that we got that in, we're just going to put them in loose. Now we got to figure out, well, where are we, right? Since we're starting from zero, we've had the head off. So this is the fulcrum nut, and you can see it's what rides against the rocker arm. And this is the set screw. And a lot of people get that confused. It depends upon the design of the rocker and fulcrum arrangement. So these are either 16 millimeters or whatever the hell it is, metric E, right? Or it's a 5/8, which is traditional for people like me because I'm old and nobody, we don't understand. Let's just tighten this down a little bit, right? And I've seen this where guys, you got to tighten it down all the way. Well, if you did that, right, you would never open a valve. And if it was a zero interference fit type motor, you'd bend your valve. We'll just kind of make it so that it's, not flopping in the breeze. That's good, right? Just a little bit of clearance, so that because we don't know where it is, right? We have no idea where anything is right now. Now we got to find top dead center. So I got my pencil, which is what a lot of people use. Are you guys ready? I'm going to turn over the motor. Right now, we want to find, here's the magnet over here. And I'll give you guys a better look at that, but you could probably see it. There's our magnet. Am I bright enough? Yeah, I'm probably bright enough. Do I want to be a little bit brighter? Let me see. So let's turn it. Now, we're going to turn it clockwise. Most motors turn that way. And of course, you can tell because of the cupping on the flywheel, right? The vanes, right? That's for air movement, cooling. Let's just start turning it. And I want to take your time, guys. If you don't do this a lot, right? Take your time, observe what's going on. I'm going to explain. Oh, we got an exhaust event happening, but what is it? We don't know yet. Okay, there's an intake event. So when an intake happens, you're sucking in air. The piston's on its way down, displacing that volume, creating suction. Sucking air and fuel from here. Here's your intake, here's your exhaust. All right, we did that, right? We sucked. Now, we're going to start coming up, right, to compress the gases. Ignore this valve for a minute. See how it dipped? Ignore it for a minute. We should be coming up. Here is my magnet. So the magnet is going to be close to TDC somewhere, right, because it's got a fire. So right about here. Now let's stick our pencil in. Right? Pencil's moving up and down a little bit. Now, on a lot of Briggs motors, the Briggs manual talks about being a little bit past TDC. This way everything should be closed. We should be good here. Now, we're going to just do a quick measurement. We're going to start. And a little bit later, I'm going to explain what the exhaust valve does. So let's get out. Now, most of these motors, most things, you'll sometimes see specs of 2 to 4. Kohler motors, some Honda motors, what have you. On these Briggs motors, 4 to 5 thousandths, that's 0.005, to about 8 or 9 thousandths, 0.008 or 9. I like to be a little tight. I'll start off with a 5, and you'll see how it ends up at 4. Okay? Let's make sure this is out of the way. You go there. Right? You go to the plug. Now let's grab a 5, and you'll see what I mean. Just move him out of the way for now. Here's a 5. We're going to go plug it into our intake. So let's tighten it up until we get contact. Oh, that's contact. I want to just feel it right about there, right? It's holding on, just about holding on to the feeler gauge. And now we're going to just kind of hold the nut and tighten in the set screw. It's a jam nut. Okay. Just got to go in a lot more. Take your time, holding the nut. And then you might want to push down. I'm going to push down a little bit on the nut because I want to oppose the force because I'm going to be twisting this way. So I'm going to try to hold that measurement, right? Nice and tight, okay? Just leave it like that. Feels good. Okay, now I like it a little bit tighter, and I want to make sure, it's perfect really, but I want to make sure that this whole assembly is jammed up. You've got threads on the stud, you've got threads in the nut, and then you got threads on the jam nut, right, the center piece. That's a lot of threads, even though they're fine thread and they're precision. When you tighten that up, it changes the measurement a little bit, right? So in many cases, when you take up all that clearance in the threads, it'll open that gap a little. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive that whole assembly down, just with like a little bit. See, I put a little bit on there. You know, let me tighten the motor down a little, make it a little easier for us. Okay, and you'll see it'll be a little bit tighter, so it'll be closer to that, yeah, just a little bit, right? And it's going to be more like 4 thousandths now for me, which is what I like. I like that. Oh, it's perfect. Perfect. Okay? And it still moves. Now, this motor is 5.5 horsepower, 190cc. It's a little bit bigger than a lot of the other motors. You got some of those really small overhead lawnmower, you know, E-series. The springs are so thin and small and lightweight that if you're doing one of those, if you put too much tension, you know, if you're like shoving it in, right, and it's a little bit too much friction, it'll actually push the springs down. Of course, that's the wrong measurement, no matter what you're doing. You'll never get a right measurement. So on this motor, because the springs are a little stiffer, it's not allowing me to do that, so I know I'm getting a good measurement, all right? Now let's go to our 8 thousandths. We're going to go to the exhaust, and we're going to repeat the same thing. Let's tighten it up until we start to feel resistance. And here, I'll do this with this hand here, because I know my hands will get in your way. Can't help that. A little too much. A little too much. That's about right. I think we'll... a little bit more. Yeah, that's perfect. All right, it's almost ready to fall out. Now again, I'm going to put my wrench on. And let me tighten up the set screw a little bit. It's backed out pretty far. All right, so I'm gonna come down this way with the wrench, just a little bit. I don't want to move it, but I'm just going to apply a little bit of force to take up the slop in the wrench and to hold the outer nut against the force of as I'm trying to turn in the inner nut. That's tight. Now, let's feel it. Make sure we didn't screw it up. Well, it feels like it's a little loose, right? I think it could be a little bit better, but we're going to take up the clearance in the assembly. Just light, I'm not forcing it. Let's see how it feels. Oh, that's perfect. In fact, see how much it actually went from like being kind of loose to the 8 thousandths. And in fact, I think, and there's a range, you have this range. It's not like, you know, space shuttle. Yeah, that actually fits in. The 7 thousandths fits in there. Good, perfect. We're done, guys. Now, we're almost done. Now, what we want to do is we want to rotate it around a little bit, and then we're going to recheck, always, okay? Because we know we're tight, but, you know, what if we didn't get something right, or, you know, the dog was barking, I want to go in, like you just did, you know, the wife or lady, or your friend, or your significant other calls you, somebody calls on the phone, you forget, always got to go back and check. Let's spin this thing around, and let's watch the valve events, and we'll talk about what's going on here. Okay, so we were TDC. We should have fired. We're on a downstroke, a power stroke. Okay, and we're going to start to see some exhaust. Okay, so it's a small engine, so these things happen quick, right? So we're going to get rid of the bad gases. I got bad gas. So bad gases are gone, right? And we have an intake event here. Okay, because was pulling down, right? To get rid of bad gases, the piston's coming up. To suck fresh fuel in, the piston's going down. Right? Coming up to fire. Where's our maggot? It's coming. Our maggot is over here. Right? Here it comes. Maggot's here. Right? There's the magnet. Okay? That's top dead center. TDC. And we can feel it. See? Piston's here. Now let's talk about compression brake. All right? Versus valve overlap. That's kind of important. Now, as you guys might know, right, there is this thing called compression release, or it has a bunch of different names. That's supposed to make it easier to pull. But you're going to see two events occur in relation to the exhaust valve and the intake valve. And you might be asking as we go through it, well, what the heck's going on there, Roger? Let's find out. Let's turn it. All right, we should be power stroke. All right, we're going to get rid of the bad gas. Bad gas is going away. Now we got to start sucking in. Okay, we got our nice charge. What's that? Why is that going? Didn't we already run that? That exhaust valve? What's going on with that? Let's see if we can find out. It closes all the way. Where is our magnet? Magnet's right here. We're at TDC. What is that? Okay, now we should fire. Up. What's it doing? It's doing it again, right? Well, that's because it's getting rid of the bad gases. Okay, there we go. Right there. See? See that? See that right there where the two are dancing together? That's valve overlap. Right? And why is that, right? Well, what's going on? Well, try to imagine this motor's running at 3,000 RPMs, right? Or 3,200, whatever it's rated for. And you guys must have known you put your hand or something near the exhaust and it's pulsing, but it's a constant stream. Well, it's also a constant stream of intake charge, fuel and air. And you want the maximum amount of fuel and air, clean fuel and air in your combustion chamber, and that gives you the max amount of power, right? More you can pack in there, more fuel and air you can get into your combustion chamber, the more power the engine's going to make. And the cleaner the charge, right, the more power you're going to make. And of course, it's better for the environment. Now, what I mean by clean? Well, there's always some amount of the old burn, the old combustion gases from the previous cycle that kind of gets caught in the combustion chamber. And, engineers try to find ways of cleaning that up. And one way is to do this, all right? You leave the two valves open for a little bit of time. You'd say, well, Arch, that's going to bleed off compression and gas. Yes, it's going to bleed off a little bit of whatever, as you're sucking in the new fuel charge, right? You're doing this, right? There, for a little period of time, right about here, the two ports are open just a little bit. And all that velocity of that mass, the exhaust gas is coming out, they're very excited, right? Hot gases are moving fast, they're very excited. These are cold, right? So you're using the velocity of the exhaust to suck in a little bit more fresh charge and evacuate. That might go out a little bit, but not really. There's a column of air, of spent gases in here. And you're just trying to get every little bit of spent junk out and make a little bit more room for the fresh stuff to come in. And it's always easier to fill a vessel when there's a way to get, like if you try to pour something in a vessel, right, a container, right, some of that air has to be displaced, okay, because you're filling it with fluid. So you're not in a vacuum, right? So you need to have some room to move this in. And that's the idea behind this. And you're using the energy of the charge at this high velocity because things are moving really fast. The frequencies are going real fast. Everything's moving real fast. Here comes the piston. There's your piston up at the top. Okay, there's your magnet over there. We're going to fire. Push down. All right. We're getting ready to get rid of the exhaust gases because remember now, the exhaust gases have expanded. It's spent fuel and air. There's not very much fuel and air left. There might be a little bit, but It's done doing its job. We gotta get rid of it. We need fresh fuel and air. So let's start bringing our fresh fuel and air in. Okay. And now we're gonna start. Now that's a downstroke, okay, because you're sucking it in. The piston is going downward. Now the piston's going to start coming up. Because it's about ready to start coming up, it's starting to make compression. When you go to pull it, it's kind of hard to pull. Watch. Okay, see that open? It opened a little bit, right? Why? And that's to bleed off a little bit of compression because you're pulling it. Okay, fired. Okay, and the stroke continues. All right, guys, I think that just about covers it. Arch is going on and on and on. I don't want to get too crazy and scientific because I'll get you in the lab and we'll... All right, that's enough. I think that covers it now. We got one more thing to do. You're not done yet, right? Remember I said, you want to make sure at TDC, remember I said, if you get distracted, because I'm a distracted person, I'm very distracting. Let's take our 4,000s. Feels good. Let's take our 7,000s. Feels good. I know I tighten those, but just in case, right? That's good. That's good. Right, just move just a touch. We're done. I'll see you guys in the next one. And for the part of this video, this is part of the Will It Run. Next thing up is we're going to work on the magneto, clean that up, make that nice, and then we'll put the rest of the motor together. I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, so now I have a nice 5 horsepower overhead valve engine, a little bit more modern for a project. 2 motors into one, and this motor needs, you know, quite a bit of work, but I think it's a worthy project, and it came out nice. It's running real good. I'm not going to tune the carburetor yet, guys. I'm going to wait either for to see what the motor is going to be put in, right? Is it going to be under load, or is it going to be like this, running like this? And then when you goose it, you know, and then you put the load on, we don't know. I don't know what the application is. So I don't want to tune it yet for that. And I do want to say again, thank you for Nina and over at HIPAA and helping us out on this. We needed a carburetor. That carburetor was locked solid, right, from Chuck. So I'm really happy. We got a motor. Put it on the shelf over there. I'm going to clean up a little bit, and I want to thank you guys for watching. It all came out really good. So I'll see you next time on Arch's Garage.